You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is January 22nd, 2025, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we're bringing the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. We had a guest cancel on us at the last minute, so we are doing a show on the Trump inauguration today, which is actually great timing because we definitely wanted to talk about this. Uh-oh, Leon, it looks like I lost you. So, okay, there you are. So, anyways, that's going to be the focus of our show tonight is what we should expect from Trump presidency this time around, especially based upon the inauguration speech he gave. And so we're going to walk through quite a bit of that and talk about the implications of some of the things he's said. We'll also talk a little bit about the outgoing administration as well. And finally, we have something kind of funny at the end for KNP, for Knucklehead Noise Patrol. So we will get to that at the end. But before we get to any of that, let me introduce you to the rest of the panel. And today it's just me and my buddy Leon Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. So Leon, the word Brathwaite. I got thrown off on my.
Get it right, Jason. Get it right,
There you go. Well, anyways, this is pretty timely because all this is just coming down. Trump had just inaugurated. So one of the things I thought was most interesting about this time around is the organization as he goes in. And so that's kind of what my quote of the day is going to be tied to, this Liberty quote of the day. And so this is actually one from George Washington. It's associated with him. And he actually took this from it's called the I guess from the 1600 or 1500 French Jesuits, 110 rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation is where he pulled this from. But I guess he liked the quote, and so it's sort of associated with him. But he said, associate yourself with men of good quality if you esteem your own reputation, for 'tis better to be alone than in bad company. And if you really think about it, I mean, this Trump team that's coming in is quite a bit better quality than the last one that we saw come in. And let me just remind you, of kind of what we were talking about then. So, this is sort of a bunch of the people that Trump had brought in, and he had issues with John Kelly. I'm not going to say whether he was a good or bad appointment, but he had an awful lot of issues with some of the people he brought in last time. And, certainly we remember his attorney, Cohen, who turned on it and took a deal. He seemed like a little bit of a sleazeball. John Bolton.
Even though Cohen was never in the Trump government administration, I should say.
Sure.
Was,
but he was, I guess at some point he was part of Team Trump.
Yes, he was.
So the people that you keep around him, and of course he was tied into the whole Stormy Daniels issue too, as within the payoffs and stuff. But then you also had this Omarosa, who was just somebody from his game show that he brought in to be in the White House. So there was a bunch of squirrely people that came and went, some within days of coming into the White House. But you contrast that to this time around, and let me see here. I had this article up here. What is hold on a second. I just had the article up, and then it went away on me. Let's see. Here we go. I think this is the article. Okay. So this particular article here, you can see, I mean, he's got Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he's got Elon Musk, he's got Tulsi Gabbard around him, he's got Vivek Ramaswamy, and just all of these people that kind of have a gravitas of their own. And even as vice president, if you think about it, J.D. Vance, I mean, he actually wrote a book, Hillbilly Elegy, and they made it into a movie. And this was way before he even got into politics. So it's a lawyer by his own right, and came from a poverty situation. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting people that Trump is bringing along with him this time. So I think this quote of Washington's really, I think, may serve Trump much better this time around. The quality of the people that he seems to be bringing in with him. What do you think about this this quote, Leon?
Well, One of the people you did not mention in the people he had the first time was a guy named Jeff Sessions,
Mm,
who was a senator from, I think, Alabama, and he was the attorney general. And talk about a man who stabbed Donald Trump in the back. I mean, that represented everything of his administration. I think if I have to say that Trump made, even though I still think overall the economy was good and he did some good things while he was president the first time, I think Trump made some critical mistakes with the people he surrounded himself with. He really did some very, very critical mistakes because the whole lawfare thing was beginning under his first administration, and Jeff Sessions recused himself from one of the most critical things, which was the Russia investigation, and he just left Donald Trump out to dry. He never told Trump that he was going to recuse himself from these things or any such thing. But Trump found out after he was nominated and confirmed by the Senate. So I mean, the quote here by George Washington is very appropriate. Trump surrounded himself by some very, very bad people. I mean, I don't want to say bad in terms of criminal conduct or anything like that. Bad in the sense that a lot of these people did not agree with his agenda, and they showed that throughout the 4 years that he was president. However, even though I I was very upset about the 2020 elections, not because um, Trump lost the election, but how he lost it. And to this day, I'm not convinced that he actually lost it. But I think that 4 years that Trump had away from the presidency is going to make him a much better president this time. He's getting very good people, I think, around him. His Secretary of State was just confirmed, Marco Rubio, a man who I like very much in terms of his philosophical understanding of governance of a nation like ours. He put in trying to get Pam Bundy at the Justice Department. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who is going to be the director of national intelligence. I think I think he's putting some very good people in place who will make him look better than the first group did. And what I do hope though is that with all these good people that he's putting around him, I want to see accountability to those people who are around him and their associates who put this country through sheer hell. But I think getting good people will make a much better president this time than it did the first.
yeah. And I'm not totally convinced necessarily that all those other people were necessarily bad. There were certainly some terrible ones that he had the first time, but even somebody like John Sessions, that's more of an issue of them not being on the same page. I don't know that a lot about Sessions. He's a Republican senator that he picked to be his attorney general, but I just know that clearly they weren't on the same page, which caused a lot of the chaos. Yeah, it felt very haphazard when he went into office last time, just scrambling to get people, and this time it seems very much more planned out with a lot of organizations that are kind of
Mhm.
tied in with Trump this time. I mean, groups like Turning Point USA and others that are just really working closely with him, that he really didn't feel like he found his feet till near the end of his last election. So I guess we'll
Sure.
see how it goes. But I tell you, he is off to at least keeping one promise, and that was to the Libertarian Party when he went and spoke there. He said he would pardon Ross Ulbricht. That was one of the demands the Libertarians made. He made a promise there, and that was one of the first things he did when when Trump came into office, is to pardon
Yes.
Ross Ulbricht, who was somebody who had been sort of he's somebody who was involved with the Silk Road and cryptocurrencies, and
Yes.
and essentially there was a lot of criminal activity on the Silk Road, and it sounds like the Fed sort of rigged the case against him and put him in jail for a ridiculous amount of time.
Sure.
And so but we're not going to get into litigating that whole case here, but it just is one thing I wanted to make sure people knew, that Trump has actually kept a promise right away coming into office. And, maybe hopefully we'll see Julian Assange or, Edward Snowden, coming
Well,
up as well.
He did say he was going to pardon the January 6 people, and he already did that.
Yes,
so,
yes, that too. The January 6ers were all immediately pardoned. So that's also awesome.
Yes.
But so let's talk about what some of the stuff is that he said, because clearly he's been keeping his word on some of these things. So he said an awful lot of things in his inauguration. And so we're actually going to go through piece by piece on his inauguration speech. We're not going to do the whole speech, and we've sped it up just a little bit, but we've taken a lot of clips out of it, and we're going to talk about some of the things. So first, I want to give you a flavor of what he said with the intro to his speech. And I think it was, fairly presidential sounding, and it, he came out very boldly. It didn't sound like a weak president, which is a huge contrast with the outgoing administration. So, Leon, maybe you could play clip KOL 1.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Our sovereignty will be reclaimed. Our safety will be restored. The scales of justice will be rebalanced. The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end.
So that was the a big chunk of his intro right there that you heard. And he sounded very confident and, convincing. What did you think, Leon?
Well, I saw most of the speech. I didn't see all of it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even see that introduction because I got into it when he was probably a quarter way into the entire speech itself. But I thought this is, to me, this is the beginning of the better Trump, quite frankly, because I think he came in with a vision, and he have an idea what he wants to do for this country in the next 4 years, and I really like that. As opposed to what we just got over, the nightmare of the Biden administration. I think he is very clear about what he wants to do. He makes promises. He exaggerates a lot. I don't particularly like that, but I think he has a very clear vision, and I think it will be great for. Well, I really believe in this golden age he's talking about. Okay, fine, it's not going to be as golden as he's making it, but I really believe there's going to be some sort of golden age coming. I really do believe that.
Well, it felt like we needed a shot of optimism, especially after 4 years of Biden, and I think we got that out of the introduction of his speech. So I was happy to hear that. Now, one of the things when we talk about the optimism from leaving the Biden administration is the failings that I think a lot of us were seeing that caused Trump to get elected this time around.
Sure.
And he goes into that too in the speech. And so we have a quick summary of some of that. So Leon, can you play KOL 2?
As we gather today, our government confronts a crisis of trust. For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment has extracted power and wealth from our citizens while the pillars of our society lay broken and seemingly in complete disrepair. We now have a government that cannot manage even a simple crisis at home, while at the same time stumbling into a continuing catalog of catastrophic events abroad. It fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provides sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals, many from prisons and mental institutions that have illegally entered our country from all over the world. We have a government that has given unlimited funding to the defense of foreign borders, but refuses to defend American borders or, more importantly, its own people. Our country can no longer deliver basic services in times of emergency. We have a public health system that does not deliver in times of disaster, yet more money is spent on it than any country anywhere in the world. and we have an education system that teaches our children to be ashamed of themselves in many cases, to hate our country. From this moment on, America's decline is over.
I love the way he ended that, because I think we've seen a lot of these problems with our current government, and when he says America's decline is over, it's fine. I mean, I would much rather, I would love to have a libertarian in there, but if we're going to have anybody else, he really, sounded inspiring when he said
Yes.
that, and
Yes.
so hats off to him. He's calling out a lot of the problems that he's seeing, and I really liked hearing that. So, what did you think about it?
Well, I thought that I have a great bias towards the issues concerning the border, and I believe if we don't have control of our own sovereignty, which is the border is a demarcation of our sovereignty. If we don't have control of our sovereignty, in the sense that we cannot control who comes into our country, into our sovereignty. If we don't have that, we don't have a country. And this country is a great land. It has a potential to be great, to be greater, I should say. But we cannot allow this unchecked invasion into our land. And I think Trump campaigned on this, and based upon his words at his inauguration and his actions so far, I think we're going to get our sovereignty back. There are a lot of things that we will need to correct, obviously. These people have to go back to where they came from. I fully believe that.
Leon, let me short circuit you there just a little bit, because the very next clip we're going to go to is the executive orders. He starts talking about executive orders, and that's literally the first one he's talking about, what he's going to do, and it's on immigration. So before you kind of wind up on your immigration thoughts, let's hear what Trump specifically said he's going to do, and then you can work that into your comments as well. So
Absolutely.
that's KOL 3.
Today, I will sign a series of historic executive orders. With these actions, we will begin the complete restoration of America and the revolution of common sense. It's all about common sense. First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country. Under the orders I signed today, we will also be designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations.
Yeah, he also went on to talk about trying to clean up criminal gangs as well that are coming from out of the country that have found some homes in some of these sanctuary cities. So, but yeah, so I guess go ahead, Leon, with your critique, and then I'll jump in as well.
Yeah, I mean the whole idea, the whole overarching idea in all of this. I mean, Trump gave a specific policies that he will institute, but the overarching idea in all of this was the reclaiming of our sovereignty, because this place that we call the United States of America is the sovereignty of all of us combined. Whether it's the land that you own, Jason, the land that I own, or even a public building, a so-called public building, it's taxpayers pay for those buildings. So when you combine it all, it's our sovereignty. And we should decide who walks in here and who do not. And I think reclaiming that sovereignty is like reclaiming your home and trying to put it back in order. I think this is what Donald Trump wants to do. And I think it's a good thing for this country. Now, we have a lot of problems and we'll work through them. But this problem of not controlling our borders, not controlling our sovereignty is a very, very big issue. Because without control of our sovereignty, we do not have a country. And I think it's vitally important what he's trying to do and what you have already started. I mean, Tom Holman have already talking about how many people they've arrested so far and how many, some of them going to be immediately deported. Some have to go before a judge and all that kind of stuff and things like that. But the process is on, and we have to control that border. And the northern border seems to be becoming a problem, but the southern border is a damn crisis. So I think he's on the right track where that is concerned. It was a promise he made during the campaign, and I think it's a promise he's about to keep.
Yeah, and this is a problem that has been long in the making, but it's been on steroids through the Biden administration, just
Yes.
absolutely amplified because of the messaging that Democrats have changed, over the last 10 years. It used to be that Democrats were, I guess you might say, sensible socialists, if there is such a thing. And in that sense, people like oh gosh, what is it? Bernie Sanders and others are on record saying that, look, we can't have this open migration because it drives down workers' wages, is what they would say. Now, and of course they've all changed their tune to say, hey, we're gonna offer free stuff and bring as many people in. I mean, if you remember, they had, what was that? The presidential primary, I think, when they were running against Trump back in 2019, 2020. And all of the Democrats were asked, would you support free health care for all migrants? And they all raised their hand. They said they all deserve it. It's just like saying, look, they're essentially saying that the taxpayers of the United States have to essentially provide for everybody in the world that may show up. And of course, if you're providing free stuff, as we know in economics, a lot more people will show up when the price becomes free.
Exactly.
So, but this is something that we've seen with, from the libertarian perspective. I think we would much prefer to have more open borders. But as Milton Friedman showed us, he said, look, you can either have a welfare state or you can have open borders, but you can't have both. And New York has found that out good and hard. Mayor Eric Adams, we've showed that video on our show before of him talking to his city council and saying, look, this immigration issue is going to destroy New York City. And they are spending, I believe, in the billions in just, I think New York City itself has spent over $1 billion, I think, on migrants since all this has come in, with free hotels, free food cards, free all kinds of stuff, free services, right? And so they found out good and hard that you can't, this isn't the immigration of 100 years ago where people are showing up for a job and an opportunity. This is the immigration where it's been spiked with socialism and saying, hey, free stuff. So yeah, kind of crazy.
It's just I have to push back a little bit on this open border concept, Jason. I really do. Okay, I cannot see how there are any conditions under which the whole concept of open borders can exist, because especially when you're dealing with a situation as we are dealing here in the United States, we are talking about people living at levels that are below the poverty level here in the United States. And here we have the United States, the richest or one of the richest countries in the world. People will always want to migrate into the United States. They will always want that, okay? Even if we did not have a welfare state, they will still want to. And the other thing too, we will never get rid of a welfare state as long as we have these dirty politicians running our country. They will always looking to buy votes, which is exactly what they're doing right now. So whether the welfare state exists or not, we always have the dirtiness of these politicians trying to buy votes. And they will always do that. There's no way to get around that. Unless we stop having politicians, I don't know how we would do that. Not
Well,
in a republic. We can't have that.
and Leon, when I think when Milton Friedman says open borders, he's talking more like the Ellis Island situation. So it wasn't like people were coming through just completely uncontrolled, but they were coming through checkpoints, and they were being screened. And the idea was, hey, look, most of these people, they were coming for work, and the country was better off for those people coming at that time. So the problem that we currently have now is I think government was essentially this big back then. Today, it's like bigger than the screen can show. So, I mean, as far as scale goes, so I think that's the crux of the problem here is too much government ruins everything, including immigration.
Well, true. Well, I mean, if we are discussing some version of legal migration, okay, I mean, even though Ellis Island was, people were coming and at random, shall we say, but they were coming into checkpoints, they were being screened to some extent, and then let into the country. If we are talking some aspect of legal migration, I'm all for that. Okay, I'm an immigrant myself. Okay, but I don't want anything that resembles what's happening, anything close to what's happening at the southern border and to some extent at the northern border. No, I don't want that at all.
Yeah. And I think a lot of libertarians probably, I'm not every libertarian, obviously, there's a wide variety of libertarians, but I think a lot of them are probably close to the Milton Friedman idea. And therefore, it's a little more looks like Ellis Island and just, be relatively open, but not, with handouts, with more like hand ups. So, and it's not really even hand ups, it's cooperation. I mean, people showing up to do jobs that people want them to do, or,
Sure.
So, yeah. So, anyways, oh, by the way, there was one other aspect of this that he didn't talk about in this, but I think he signed an executive order right away, and that was to end birthright citizenship, which is going to be a hot potato. And that in itself is, for the background, for any listeners who aren't worried, birthright citizenship, essentially you're born here. It doesn't matter what the status of your parents are. You're considered a citizen at that point.
Yes.
And almost no other country in the world has that. And the only reason we have that is because it was a way to deal with the slavery situation when we freed the slaves after the Civil War. There were some people then who just wanted to deport the people who had been slaves. And the issue was, hey, no, these people have a right to be here. They have a right to be citizens. And so by just saying, well, they were born here. So it seemed like a simple solution at the time. But hey, if you're watching on public access, you're going to have to catch the rest of this discussion online. And boy, have we got a lot of stuff, including the External Revenue Service that we're going to talk about. It's something that sounds a little scary. So, but we got a whole bunch more to talk about. So come check us out online and catch the rest of the show there. But getting back to the immigration thing, that was a problem or a solution to the slavery problem. And this is a problem with short-sighted planners, right? They saw that as a short-term fix for a problem that was a big problem back then. And now they didn't really think it through, and they have a migration system that's completely different than most of the rest of the world, where it just says, hey, you're born here, you automatically get the rights to citizenship, which means the social safety net as well. So yeah.
Well, that executive order that Trump signed, I am not sure he has the authority to end birthright citizenship, even though because it's in the Constitution, but there's a clause in there about the jurisdiction, about being under the jurisdiction of the United States. That clause is what is going to become contentious as to whether illegal aliens are under. I mean, they're here illegally. Are they truly under the jurisdiction of the United States? If they're here illegally and hiding, running around the country, hiding and blah, 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 whatever it is they do. So that is the issue about this jurisdiction. That is where this jurisdiction issue is going to come up. And there are some scholars who say that their children cannot be American citizens because of that jurisdiction issue. And there are some saying they can be. So the Supreme Court will have to rule on it. But I'm sure that Trump's signature could not by itself end birthright citizenship.
I think it's a good thing overall because the discussion, because it's going to elevate it to the Supreme Court pretty fast, and
Yes,
um, right out of the gate, he's putting that on the front burner, and it really is an issue that needs to be discussed because it really is a nonsensical, citizenship policy. So
it is. It
yeah.
is.
So
China has a very active thing that they do where they send people here to have they even have a word for it.
well,
They
I know there's what do they call it? Citizenship tourism or whatever they call
tourism,
that.
yeah, citizenship
Yeah,
tourism or baby tourism or some kind of stuff and things like that, where they send people here, pregnant women here, they have their kids here, and then they go back. And 18 years down the road, the kids claiming their citizenship here in the United States, but is their loyalty here? We don't know. Okay, that's the question. So
yeah.
so anyway, these are all things I guess the Supreme Court will have to. Well, they can't do anything about the people who claim citizenship under the Constitution, under the constitutional clause as it is now interpreted. But anything going forward after the rule, if they rule the other way, well, then it will stop, I guess.
Well, our next item up is we have a little clip from him on some of his environmental ideas and inflation. They're all just sort of sandwiched together in this clip. So, Leon, can you play KOL 4?
Next, I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. The inflation crisis was caused by massive overspending and escalating energy prices, and that is why today I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill. With my actions today, we will end the Green New Deal and we will revoke the electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto industry and keeping my sacred pledge to our great American auto workers. In other words, you'll be able to buy the car of your choice.
So overall, I mean, it worries me a little bit that he's going to, I guess, try to bring prices down with, government. That sounds a little fishy. But if you listen a little bit to what he's talking about there, by making energy cheaper, that, essentially bringing down energy prices will be a deflationary force on other prices, because obviously energy is built into the cost of everything else. So if
Well, it's a major part of running any business, right? The energy cost, running your lights, your machinery, all that kind of stuff, and things that you need energy for those things. But go ahead, I interrupted you. Sorry.
Sure. I was just going to say that, we can see this in places where they've gone whole hog in on these energy policies. Energy is more expensive in those places. And you can see big differentials between California and their neighboring states. But, you can also see this too in other countries too that have adopted some of these policies, and, including places like Germany where, I guess they're trying to figure out how to get back to fossil, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So, and also too, talking about ending the EV mandate, which it does sound like Gavin Newsom's kind of running scared from that now too, as well, here in California. So, what do you think about all this stuff, Leon?
Well, first of all, Gavin have to run scared from the fire, and will run scared from the EV mandate. Well,
and running scared from Trump's shadow too.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I think you talk about the government involvement in these things, and there's some other things that we probably talk about about government involvement. I'm really kind of leery of Trump's tendency to push the government into the marketplace. I think that tendency exists a little bit too much for me. But today I was listening to one of the shows on Fox News, and Greg Gutfeld made a very important point. I think is very important, that even in your favorite restaurant, you go to the restaurant and you look at the menu, and you're gonna see many things on that thing that you will not like. Okay, and but you will have the thing that you like, and you will enjoy the food, and you will go back several times even after you have enjoyed the meal there. So he was making Trump and making an analogy that Trump is like that restaurant, like your favorite restaurant, where there are things that you're not gonna like, but there are things that you're obviously gonna like. Now Trump has the concept of lowering prices overall, okay, and energy is a big part of doing business. Your lights, your machinery, everything. The gasoline you need to run your vehicles, that you have to deliver your products and all that kind of stuff, is energy. You need energy for almost everything. And if you could get those prices under control, get them down and all that kind of stuff, yes, you could really overall have some kind of deflationary effects in your economy. And I mean everything, even in the price of eggs and the price of things, all kind of stuff, you could see some easing of prices as opposed to Biden and that kind of stuff. I just don't like his tendency to think that the government could solve all of these problems. You have to make sure that the free market is prominent in any policies that you want instituted. So maybe I know he's going to try and open up some of the lands for drilling and that kind of stuff. I like that. That's great. He's talking about Anwar. He's talking about there was another offshore in the Gulf. He's talking about those things of opening them up and letting people, as he said, drill, baby, drill. Great, fantastic. Just don't push the government too much into these things, because whenever the government touch anything, it's a disaster. You're almost certain that it's a disaster coming at the end. But
yes, Trump
I
has
like
a.
the he's pursuing though. I like the policies he's pursuing.
Yeah, he definitely has a populist streak in his rhetoric where he makes it
Yes,
sound like government can come in and do good things. And it's more about like his energy policy. What would work is government getting out of the way. It's not government coming in and somehow
exactly.
managing energy. It's about
Yeah,
getting out of
yeah,
the way. Those are the things Trump tends to get more right than wrong.
yes.
It scares me a little though when he talks about government having a more active role in some things. But certainly it couldn't be any worse than the last administration. So,
True. I mean, we can't make we can't make the perfect the enemy of the good, right?
yeah,
And I don't want to do that. I don't know if you're going to talk about the AI infrastructure thing that he was talking. Are you going to talk about that later on? The
AI.
AI
I
infrastructure?
don't think he said much about AI in the speech. If
No,
he did, I
he
might have missed
didn't.
it. Oh, okay.
He didn't, but
No.
I don't know if we're going to talk about it later on. But I want to show you how we were about the same government stuff. So yesterday he brought out three big wigs in the in the tech industry,
This
and they're
has to do
all
with
involved.
TikTok stuff and all that. So
Hmm?
does this have to do with the TikTok stuff and all that, or
No, not the TikTok stuff.
okay?
The stuff they're going to build this new AI infrastructure thing, and it was that guy from OpenAI, Sam Altman, and two other guys. But they were talking about doing this thing, which fine. We really do need some kind of AI infrastructure because AI is becoming so big and blown up and that kind of stuff and things like that. But there is Trump talking about what the government is going to do in terms of getting that implemented, and that is where I mean I like what they're trying to do. I like the goals what they're trying to do, but the government involvement is where I'm beginning to have my problem. So because I want them to have the AI infrastructure, AI is going to be a big part of our future, I believe, but the
Yeah,
government,
yeah.
the government.
And that's one of the things that concerned me a little bit with the what he said about the EV thing in there as well. And if it's just government taking away a mandate, that sounds pretty good, right? But then he
Yeah.
says this is for all of our auto workers, and essentially means the auto workers union and stuff. Well,
Yes.
so if he's doing things to try and appease one concentrated interest or another. That kind of worries me a little. But in this case, he's just removing a mandate. And as he said, it's to you all be able to choose what you want to choose, whatever car you want, whatever car you want to drive. So in the end, he somehow got to the right conclusion there. Well, let's talk about one that sounds a little more worrisome. And that's the next thing he brought up. And this is KOL 5, where he talks about where he thinks the government's going to be able to get a lot of new revenue. And that always sounds scary. So, Leon, play KOL 5.
I will immediately begin the overhaul of our trade system to protect American workers and families. Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich other countries, we will tariff and tax foreign countries to enrich our citizens. For this purpose, we are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury, coming from foreign sources. The American dream will soon be back and thriving like never before.
Now, his rhetoric here is economic illiteracy on stilts. Okay, so now that said, how it plays out, if it's trade policy used as a club to try and get more free trade, maybe it will play out well in the end. But at least what he's talking about, the rhetoric, and if people are listening to him and believing what he says, it's nuts. The idea of saying, hey, don't worry, we'll just tax the companies you want to buy from overseas and that'll pay for everything. Well, this is as dumb as the argument that Democrats always give about taxing corporations, right?
Exactly.
I mean, you have to pay for stuff from a corporation, and if it costs them more to deliver you stuff, it's a tax on you in the end, right? And Reagan was very clear on this, so with the public, and unfortunately, Trump is not very clear on this, or at least he's clearly giving the wrong message. Anyway.
I mean, these politicians, they always think that, we're gonna tax those big mighty corporations and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff. If those corporations are still doing business in the United States or wherever they're doing business, they're gonna pass it along. It's always the consumer and the taxpayer who end up paying for all of these nonsense that Bernie Sanders and all of them are trying to institute. And here's Trump talking the same damn nonsense, as you rightfully said, that this is economic illiteracy. And the thing that I've been hearing about this and I've been reading about this is that Trump is trying to use this whole threat of tariffs as a negotiating position for those foreign countries to open up their markets and allow more American investments and more American products to go overseas, and that will bring tax revenues back to the United States, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if that is kind of his strategy, even though, I don't like the whole concept of tariffs and all that kind of stuff, if that is what he's trying to do, uses as some kind of negotiating position, okay, maybe fine. Maybe it might work out in the end. That would be fine. But this thing about creating this external revenue service as opposed to the internal revenue service, this is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Because usually these people are going to find some way to turn upon us. Because look at what the IRS have become. When you get a letter from the IRS, recently I got a couple of letters from the IRS. They say something I didn't pay, and they want me to pay it, blah, 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 and all kind of stuff and things like that. Every time you open your mailbox and you see a letter from the IRS, you say, oh, shit, what did I do now? Oh, God, sorry. What did I do now? Oh, my God, what's going on? I mean, these people strike fear and terror into the hearts of the average citizen who just trying to earn a living and take care of his or her family. And I don't like that. And it's kind of ironic, Trump talking about cutting the size of government, how government is too bloated and all that kind of stuff and things like that. And they want to get rid of the Department of Education and the Department of this and the Department of that. And then they're talking about expanding government through an external revenue service. Come on now, make up your mind. Okay, don't want to expand government here and then shrink it there. I mean, what is that going to give us in the end? It's going to give us the same bloated government I mean, if you tell me you're going to shrink more than you expand, well, maybe you could say on net we might be better off. But I mean, this nonsense just don't fly. It really does.
Yeah. No, and also too, I mean, if you think about the IRS as sort of being a weapon that's sort of weaponized against some citizens, and
Yes.
well, now you're just giving another weapon, the external revenue service,
Exactly.
over to these same terrible people when they're in
Well,
power. So I really just am not happy to hear this kind of rhetoric, but it's possible that maybe it somehow still works out if it leads to more free trade, but the rhetoric certainly does not lead that way. It's
right.
yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, and in the end too, this is part of the problem I have with Trump in general, is that he's much better than the Democrats. So I don't that part, I'll just say right up front. I mean, Joe Biden is clearly by far the worst president we've ever had. It's hard to
That
imagine.
man, Joe Biden, make Jimmy Carter look like George Washington. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, he's just an insane clown who's demented. There's a criminal too. Yeah, it's just there's no words. I mean, to go on. We'd spend a whole show talking about all the bad things this guy's done.
Yeah.
But the idea that gosh, I mean, Trump is clearly better than the alternative, on the Democrat side. But that said, if the people who are following him get the wrong message from his rhetoric, in the end, even if Trump takes us in a better direction than Biden, we're still going to wind up lost in the wilderness at some point. That pendulum will swing back in the other direction if we don't have the true answers, I guess, that are really leading to the real North Star that you want to head towards, right? And
Right.
that's not, unfortunately, that language isn't going to stick, right? I mean, because after Trump, then if they hear some Democrats say, hey, yeah, let's tax businesses from overseas. Well,
Yeah.
why not? They just play clips of Trump saying it. And I guess if you're a Trump supporter, you'll just go right along with it. Right. So that's the problem I have with his loose rhetoric on some of this stuff.
Well, I mean, I know Trump is a businessman. He have always talked about that and that kind of stuff, and he think he can negotiate anything. So I am just hoping and praying that these things he's talking about, some of these economic illiterate things that he's speaking about, I just hope and pray these are just negotiating positions on his part. I hope we don't get to the point of where we are implementing some of these things. I really hope not.
Well, let's get to the next item that he had, and these actually start to take us back in a little bit more positive direction, where he talks about Doge and free speech. So, Leon, can you play KOL 6?
My administration will establish the brand new Department of Government Efficiency. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
Well, that certainly sounds good. The free speech part. We've talked a little about Doge before on the show, and
Yes.
I'm a little bit skeptical if it just turns out to, be trying to make some government institutions a little more efficient. If they get down to the point of saying, hey, maybe this government entity doesn't need to exist because it could do better in the marketplace, we'd be better off in the marketplace. That's a great thing. But if it just winds up Doge is like, hey, let's buy a few less tanks this year and a few less paper towels for this entity and stuff like that. That's going to be temporary at best and hardly any different than any of the other inspector general's offices that are already out there. So, but the free speech thing, I mean, he has some credibility on that side of things.
He really does. Especially with Elon Musk at his side, who bought Twitter and have really transformed Twitter into X. And X, I think, is almost like a beacon of free speech. I like what Elon Musk is doing there. And Elon Musk, of course, is heading up, now that Ramaswamy have left, he's now heading up this Doge. And they are promising to cut $2 trillion from the budget. Over, I guess it's going to be 2 trillion cut over 10 years or what. I don't know exactly what's the time frame on that, but they're promising to cut actual cuts, not these fake cuts we always have in Washington. They are promising actual cuts of $2 trillion from the budget. Now, I think that's a steep hill to climb, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of resistance to it, especially from the Democrats. But I like where they claim to be going, so I have to give them some time to see if they could put it into actual practice, implement it as stated, and I hope they do. I wish them all the luck in the world.
Well, the rhetoric's good. It really needs to get to the point of, like, Ron Paul talking about, hey, this doesn't need to be in the government forum. Like, for instance, a Department of Education at the federal level. What's the point?
Right.
I mean, they're just sending money so that it can be centrally planned from the federal level. Well, guess what? There's different needs in different regions. Why on earth do we have one federal entity that winds up pushing all kinds of crazy stuff? Like, now it's like forcing, women to have to compete against men in sports, just all kinds of nutty things. So, let's just get rid of things like the Department of Education and, let the locals deal with that. And better yet, school choice, if we could get to that. But
we could get to that, sure. I think they should get rid of the Department of Energy also. I mean, probably you could keep the information data collection part of it, like EIA. Maybe you could keep that, but most of the Department of Energy don't do crack.
Mm-hmm.
So
except get in the way.
Well, true, they do get in the way. So
they use a lot of energy to go nowhere. So anyway,
we can save the energy. We can save the energy.
Yes, exactly, by shutting off their lights.
Yes.
So let's talk about the next one. It is KOL7, and it is weaponized justice system. So let's hear what Trump had to say on that.
Never again will the immense power of the state be weaponized to persecute political opponents, something I know something about. We will not allow that to happen. It will not happen again. Under my leadership, we will restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law. And we are going to bring law and order back to our cities.
So I no bones with him on that. Sounded good. Clearly, we've seen the justice system weaponized by the Biden administration against their opponents, especially Trump. It's absolutely insane to hear these Democrats talk about how Trump is, a convicted felon when the stuff he's been charged with is absolutely insane. I mean, if the craziest thing of all is, when they went after him for impeachment the first time, the Biden story is at the heart of the Trump story, in the sense that a lot of Democrats don't even realize, but what they were going after Trump for the first time was he was trying to get a Ukrainian prosecutor reinstalled by essentially negotiating with aid money that was supposed to go to that country, and that it was reinstalled prosecutor that Biden, when he was vice president, had dismissed because he wound up doing the same thing, holding up trade money, and Biden is on record saying it, bragging about it, and Democrats just act like they don't hear it.
The prosecutor fired.
And it had to do with the prosecutor who was investigating Burisma, which was the company his son worked at and was getting paid over $1 million a year, I believe, for. In Biden, Hunter Biden has even admitted he had no knowledge of that industry. He had really no knowledge of Ukraine. So he had no business being on this, except for the fact that his dad, as vice president, was handed that jurisdiction to be responsible for with Obama on their foreign policy issues, and it was completely abused. And the crazy thing is, that could be at the heart energy policy of this whole war between Ukraine and Russia. So, I mean, the idea that Biden's hands are so dirty and all of that, and Trump is the guy who's getting prosecuted for everything, including, by, chased by a woman who claims she was sexually assaulted, but can't tell when it happened, what day it happened. It's just another of these just crazy things. Oh, she's so credible, and yet she doesn't can't even specify any of the things that supposedly happened in the
Tell me this thing.
assault.
This is unbelievable. You know, I think I've said, another thing, I know I've said this on the show before. One of the problems, about this weaponization is that the Biden administration had drifted us into a place where the tolerance of violence and the selective prosecution had become very prominent. Because look at the January 6 people who Trump just pardoned. Okay, some of them clearly did something wrong. Okay, there's no doubt about that. I'm not going to argue that point. Some of them really did something wrong. Okay, they committed some acts of violence. Most of them did not. All right, most of them didn't enter the Capitol, but they were around the area and that kind of stuff. The FBI used facial recognition, found a whole bunch of them, and got them in prison.
And when you said most of them didn't enter, most who entered peacefully too.
Peacefully,
so
right?
Yes. So I mean, this is absolutely nuts. When you compare it to the demonstrations that went on for George Floyd.
This is what exactly I was getting to. This is exactly what I was getting to. Who was persecuted in the George Floyd riots? In Portland, they were trying to burn down a federal building. And what was worse about that, there were people inside the building.
Yep.
Who was prosecuted for that.
Yep.
They took over several blocks. What do you call a chop zone or some crap like that?
Zone, yeah, in Seattle.
Who was prosecuted? As a matter of fact, somebody was killed in there.
Yep.
Who was prosecuted for that?
The government literally paid them to police themselves during that, which was, such a gang of thugs were running around with AK-47s, and I just,
this is exactly the point I'm trying to make, is that the justice system have drifted in that place where they tolerate violence and then they only selectively persecute certain people. If you're the wrong race, if you're the wrong political party, if you're the wrong political movement, you could be persecuted. They put a 76-year-old woman in prison who was, I don't think she even entered the Capitol, to be honest, but she was around there. I think she was just pardoned by Trump. But the whole thing is that this weaponization that we have seen, where we want to go after Catholics, we want to go after parents showing up at school board meetings, and actually one father was arrested. His daughter was raped in one of these schools, and these people think these are the people we should be going after, rather than going after all the thugs we have in our society wreaking havoc on many of us. So I hope to God that Trump could really get these things instituted, but I want something else too. Okay, I do not want the Department of Justice to be used for retribution. I do not want that. What I do want is accountability. Okay, I do want some of these people to be investigated, and if there are any crimes that were committed, I want them prosecuted. I want that, because if we don't do that, we are just encouraging more of it.
Yeah, like Biden and his family.
Yeah.
Not even being investigated, and when they were investigated, it was with kid gloves. I mean, they had a whistleblower from the IRS who was saying that, look, they were told not to dig in on this, and then they allowed the statute of limitations to expire, so that Hunter Biden got off without paying several $1 million of taxes that he was supposed to pay from some of these bags of cash he was carrying around for his dad in these places. So anyways, let's get on to the next one, and this will be near and dear to your heart, Leon, where Trump makes a proclamation about the number of genders that there will officially be with respect to government. This is KOL 8.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
So I largely with Trump on this, but mainly I think, as a libertarian, I essentially want government to have a small footprint. Therefore, whatever government says about there being two genders, then it will apply to a limited number of places that we all have to deal with. So if you have a government institution or a government school or anything like that, then it makes sense. You have, divisions that we've specifically put in because of differences between men and women, and the idea to allow for some level of fairness in funding. When you talk about, if women aren't playing the sport so much, maybe let's make sure they get funding for some of the things they'd rather do. But what we're seeing have happen now is that, my gosh, they're allowing guys who want to identify as women to take advantage of women in these situations, and it's just awful. But if people want to do whatever they want to do in private, and if a private institution, you got a private club, a private sports club, you get together, make whatever rules you want. But if the government's going to be involved, I think you do have to set some kind of standards that allow for some level of reason and fairness. What do you think, Leon?
Well, I hear the argument about the limitations of government, but on this one though, I really want them to do something about this, because especially with kids under the age of 18, where they are making decisions for these children which are irreversible, like giving them, these hormone blockers and all these other things, and the puberty blockers and hormone therapy and all these other things that they're trying to do to children right now. Because this whole transgender ideology is nothing but a poison. I am not talking about the people, okay? For all of you people listening to this show, I am not talking about the people. I am talking about the ideology. The ideology is poisonous, okay? Because there's no amount of surgery, there's no amount of therapy, puberty blockers and stuff that you can give to people that change a man into a woman or a woman into a man. We have to have clear standards. What is a man? What is a woman? I can't believe we even having this discussion. We have a Supreme Court justice who can't define what a woman is. That to me is mind-boggling.
And that's the scary part, which I think why there needs to be a clear standard set within government. Because if you have judges who are claiming they can't tell what, how many genders there are, or, if they can't clearly define what a woman is, that has an impact on how government resources are going to be used in places, especially when you talk about schools and sports and stuff like that. So I think there's several issues going on here. One, you're talking specifically about issues with, children and transitioning versus, but I'm mainly thinking about the government resources part of it. And we have to have standards, and to say a woman is whatever you want to imagine it is, that's crazy.
Sure. So, I mean, I think you said this, but in a private life, a man want to put on a woman dress, a woman want to put on clothes that a man would traditionally wear, and that kind of stuff. That's fine. I don't care. Okay, that's your business. My problem is when we get this fuzziness in our society in general, in our schools, in our universities, and all that kind of stuff, where we're not sure who's a man and who's a woman, and we have non-binary, we have this, we have that. I had a early experience. So I was teaching at a private university. I'm not going to call their name. And there was this person, I have to say person, came into my class one day.
They, them.
Yeah, I don't know what they, them, or whatever.
Because remember, Trump is for you, not for they, them.
Right, yeah.
Or Kamala's for they, them, and Trump is for you. That's
I asked the person the name. And they gave me the name, and it turned out to be a name that could apply for male or for female. I taught this person for 8 weeks. That's the length of the session, for 8 weeks. And Jason, to this day, I don't know if that person is male or female. I have no clue. Well, it didn't make a difference to my teaching, but to me, this confusion that these people are creating in society is really problematic. I mean, I mean, if God forbid something happened to that person in that class, what do I say when I call up 911 and say this person say collapse? They're gonna obviously ask me, is it male, female, or what? What the hell am I gonna say? I don't
Yeah.
know. I really didn't know, and I
Yeah.
still don't. But this is the kind of confusions that we see in society, and this is where I think.
You say to the 911 responders, let me go check their correspondence so I can see their pronouns. You know? Right.
Yeah, yeah. And by the time I'm checking, the person die on the floor, or something, or something like that. This this is the kind of problems that we have. So I've always wondered, So when these people go to the doctor, what do they tell? Supposing like a transgender woman goes to the doctor, what the hell do they tell the doctor? Do they tell the doctor they are a woman? I
Yeah,
mean,
this is some confusion. I mean, if it's a personal decision, in somebody's private life, I have no problem. But
right? Yeah, I
it's
agree.
the issue with government, having to get involved, and this is part of the double-edged sword too, because it certainly sounds good that Trump is setting these standards and sort of sounds like a more rational way. The male and female. And we're not going to condemn the majority to have to live by the reality of 1% or something like that of whatever
Yes.
their view of reality is. But but that said, it does make you worry, because we just went through an administration where it was the reverse, where the government was forcing it the other way, right? And
Exactly.
telling
Yeah.
everybody to honor the reality that 1% perceive over the other 99%, which is
Like,
just kind of
right.
nuts. So
Yes. Yes. And if you say anything that contradicts their reality, we are
yeah.
suddenly transphobic. I mean, this
Yeah.
is madness.
But this is
This
why,
is
from the
madness.
libertarian position, I just want to keep government as small as possible. So then this problem, it doesn't become systemic, right? I mean, if government has its foot into everything, then if government gets it wrong, it's like literally advising all kids the wrong way, right? It's telling all
Sure.
kids, hey, you may not be what you think you are, right? And suddenly they've confused every kid, instead of letting just a few parents and kids have some confusion on their own, but not putting that into every family. And that's kind of what's happening right now, which is why I think we're having so many problems with this. But anyways,
You know what? Just in a personal, when I was growing up, well, I'm not gonna say the word on the on the show, but we have people. We had many. No, three boys that I can think about. I can think about that I grew up with, who like I would say have more feminine qualities, right? And we used to call them a certain name. I'm not gonna say the name, but we were terrible as children. But all three of them grew up, married, had kids, have kids, and that kind of stuff. And but I'm betting you, if those three guys were living today and they were going through the public schools as we were at that time, some teacher would have been ready to transition them to their true identity and all this kind of nonsense, and probably mess up their lives.
yeah.
That is what
And
probably would have happened.
and we're in a situation with the schools where the schools struggle to be competent just to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, right?
Yes.
And yet, to imagine that these teachers are therefore going to be a a sensible force in kids figuring out their their genders and stuff.
Yes, yes. Could you
Yeah
imagine
I
that? Could
yeah
you
well,
imagine
why
that?
don't you get the 3 R's first and show
Yeah.
us you can do a good job with that before you start playing psychologist too. But anyways, let's get on to the next thing, and this is the military, and that's kind of a kind of a tough nut to scratch, because obviously it's something where even most libertarians realize we probably need a military, but most of us think it does way too much. Let's hear what Trump has to say on that. KOL 9.
This week, I will reinstate any service members who were unjustly expelled from our military for objecting to the COVID vaccine mandate with full back pay. And I will sign an order to stop our warriors from being subjected to radical political theories and social experiments while on duty. It's going to end immediately. Our armed forces will be freed to focus on their sole mission, defeating America's enemies. Like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military the world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into.
Well, I love the fact that he's talking about wars that we end and never get into. That's the best part of it, and also talking about too, not wokeifying the military, and forcing them to take mystery injections and everything else. So most of that sounded pretty positive. Although I do think we spend an awful lot on the military, so I certainly am hoping that that's not in the cards. But what do you think, Leon? What did you get out of that?
Well, the wokeness of the military, I really have always had a problem with. I think Trump's choice to head the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, I think is a good choice. And I think we need to get the bloat out of the military. All the wokeness, all the DEI, all of that have to go. And I think they have to spend their time, their efforts on defending our great land. I know that that you and I have a disagreement on this about the projection of the overseas. I do believe it's on net. And notice I said net. They are a force for good overall. Because
certainly not Biden's net. Certainly not Biden's net. You say on net. Biden's net has been pretty terrible.
Yeah, okay, that's true. That may be true. But anywhere in the world that there are disasters, even though this is not part of our core mission, it is the U.S. military that can go there and provide the 3 M's: men, money, and machinery. Okay, even though I guess I really should say men and women, because they're serving there and doing good work. Women I'm talking about. But but I like what Trump is saying there. I mean, if we could get all the woke nonsense out of there and focus on our mission, which is to be prepared, be always prepared to fight and win wars when called upon. I'm all for that.
Yeah, being called to fight and defend, fight defensive wars, absolutely. I just feel like quite a few of them, it's really questionable who the aggressor is. But
I don't know only about defensive wars, not Jason. I really don't know about that. Okay? And I think
well, I did want to bring in the next one because I think that plays right into this one. So these two are related. Okay. And it when he said that we're going to have less wars and the wars that we don't fight, and then hear the rhetoric that he has on the new Gulf of America. That's KOL 10.
A short time from now, we are going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, and we will restore the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley, where it should be and where it belongs. And above all, China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back.
So, Leon, would it be worth going to war over calling the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico? I do get a little bit worried that some of these defensive wars tend to, the mission creep, I guess. What do you think?
Well, of course, Mount McKinley and them kind of stuff is really not a big deal. That is just Trump's vanity about putting America first and all that, which is fine. I I don't particularly have a problem one way or the other on that. But this issue about the Panama Canal, I know. I mean, officially, we gave it to Panama during the Carter administration, but unofficially, China is really operating the Panama Canal right now, and there is a very good argument to be made about our national security if we get into conflict with China. So I am with Trump on this one. If you want to take it back, I don't know if you're going to use the military to take it back, because there's a treaty involved in this thing, and if the terms of that treaty is being broken, then yes, take it back. But if it's not been broken, well, then I don't know what grounds we will take it back under. But I don't like the fact that China is operating that canal right now. I really don't. They are our main adversary out there, and I am not. If conflict comes, I don't want them having such prominence in that canal. I really don't. That's really, really a problem.
Yeah, and I think
that's a potential national security issue.
Yeah, and if there's an issue of some breaking of a treaty, then maybe there's something there. But I think part of the problem that I have is that, when we have this faith in the United States as policemen of the world, we can't even police our front porch, which is the Panama Canal, right? I mean, if we literally had control of that, and then I think Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1 or something, and
yes.
I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, even if you have faith in our leader at a particular time, you got to realize some really nutty people are going to be leading us in crazy places in other times. And sure. I just assume that we not have our foot in all these different things. Now, this said, this is right on our doorstep. So, yeah, I mean, I do think that, we have to go by whatever treaty we have. So, I mean, if we gave it away and we don't have a grounds to do anything about it, then, I don't know, we'd be hard pressed to find a reason. But I am, very skeptical about the idea that, we should be throwing our weight around and just, taking things from other countries. To me, that doesn't sound very much like defense.
Well, it's not a matter of taking something that we didn't build, right? We built the Panama Canal, at least have some significant.
If we sold it, I mean, if we gave it away, it's not ours. I mean, it'd be like if you sold something at a yard sale and said, "Hey, I want it back." You go up at the other person's house. I built that. Yeah, but you sold it too.
It's a valid point. However, I think there was a treaty involved in the giving away of this thing. So I hope Trump has more than just his rhetoric in terms of trying to take this thing back. So we'll see. He's trying to also take control of Greenland, which I know we have no grounds on that case. It's not to say like this was something that was a part of the United States, blah blah blah, whatever. We have no grounds there, other than it really is a strategic location. It will help in terms of our national security, in terms of defending the homeland and all that. But they have no grounds. We have no legal grounds to even try to acquire it. But Trump seems to think that he can, and I don't know. Let him go for it.
And if the people want to become part of the United States,
True.
it may be a more attractive proposition now that we have gotten rid of the Biden administration. But anyways, it is interesting, though, that we're getting near the end of his speech. And I thought the last part, it was kind of, I guess, an interesting piece here where he talks about sort of manifest destiny and where he sees that going. Although I do worry a little bit that this kind of sounds like growing government a lot. But let's hear what he says here when he talks about his vision of Mars. That's KOL 11.
The United States will once again consider itself a growing nation, one that increases our wealth, expands our territory, builds our cities, raises our expectations, and carries our flag into new and beautiful horizons. And we will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars. Ambition is the lifeblood of a great nation, and right now our nation is more ambitious than any other. There's no nation like our nation. Americans are explorers, builders, innovators, entrepreneurs, and pioneers. The spirit of the frontier is written into our hearts. The call of the next great adventure resounds from within our souls. Our American ancestors turned a small group of colonies on the edge of a vast continent into a mighty republic of the most extraordinary citizens on earth.
So I kind of love the vision, but I kind of not too crazy about the idea that we're going to spend a lot of money planting a flag on Mars. So it sounds like another boondoggle one. And we didn't show it in there, but Elon was in the audience, and boy, was he happy when he heard it.
Yeah. Well, that's part of Elon's vision. Now, I mean, you think about, I mean, space exploration. I mean, we have done some of that. We have gone to the moon, and the next step is to go to the next planet, which is Mars, obviously. I mean, there are other countries that are trying to do the same thing. Russia, I know, is trying to do that. The Chinese are certainly trying to do that. But then that leaves the question as why should we? Well, I think exploration is a good thing. Okay, I really do. I think we have to go beyond our borders. I mean, as long as we're not violating the rights of anybody else, I think it's something that we should do. Now, Trump's use those words, manifest destiny. I will sometimes question where did he think that came from. I don't know where did we get this manifest destiny from. So, but I don't have a problem with us trying to go to Mars, and if Elon is going to finance most of this, it looks like it's going to be mostly done in the private sector. I'm sure the government will put its hands in there somewhere, but I don't really have a big problem with that, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it does certainly sounds like something that Doge won't be paying too close of attention to on how much money is wasted on this project.
True. Very true.
But anyway, yeah, at least it does sound like again, at least an inspirational vision for the country.
Yes.
I just, it does sound like a boondoggle too. But that said, that's pretty much the nuts and bolts of his speech. Now, there was one other little clip that I guess I thought might be worth playing, and it's just because maybe it'll give you a sense of maybe why Trump may feel a little bit more driven, I guess, during this time in office. And he talks about maybe, his near-death experience on the way to office here. So, Leon, can you play KOL 12?
Over the past 8 years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history, and I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you. Those who wish to stop our cause have tried to take my freedom and indeed to take my life. Just a few months ago in a beautiful Pennsylvania field, an assassin's bullet ripped through my ear. But I felt then, and believe even more so now, that my life was saved for a reason. I was saved by God to make America great again.
So that's his vision, and certainly that might near-death experience might really focus somebody in their mission. One thing I didn't care for was the rhetoric when he said that he's been challenged more than any other president in history, and I think the guy that we talked about right at the beginning of the show, George Washington, might beg to differ. But I mean, after all, they were literally fighting for their lives in that war. If they had lost it, they probably would have been executed. So
not only George Washington, I think Abraham Lincoln could make the same claim, and he ended up being assassinated. So
there's some people who've had some rough roads. Although I completely, this is the thing with Trump when he exaggerates. There is a kernel of truth. I mean, they put him through the worst gauntlet of governmental abuse than any president has gone through. But as far as the roughest road, I think we certainly have seen that there were at least a few presidents in our history that have had bigger challenges. But nothing, not to take anything away from Trump, though. I mean, this is an amazing victory as well.
Of course. But if he had said maybe in modern times, the modern times or in the last
Yeah.
100 years, yeah, sure, I certainly would have gone along with that with no problem. But I think Abraham Lincoln and George Washington will certainly, like you said, beg to differ.
Yeah. So anyways, but that's our coverage of that. Now we wanted to talk just a little bit about the administration that's on its sad way out of office right now. And I tell you that the craziest thing with this is the Biden administration, just seems to plumb new lows constantly for our country, whether it's in dividing us one way or another. Well, the pardons issue, this preemptive pardon issue, is just become an absolute whopper. And Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual here. In the waning minutes of his administration, we all got, a front seat to, a few weeks ago when Biden, a few months ago, I guess it was, when Biden pardoned his son Hunter for everything that Hunter had done from 2014 onwards, I believe, to give him, carte blanche immunity without even disclosing what the crimes might be. I mean, we knew of some crimes already because he had been through court, but he wasn't given pardons just for that. He was given pardons for everything. And now suddenly Biden's whole family got pardons, and also Fauci got a pardon. And so, I mean, just a whole bunch of, parade of terribles sitting here from the Biden crime family, being given pardons. People who were on the January 6th committee who may have broken the law and some of the things they were doing and destroyed records so that, their work couldn't be challenged later on, especially, when you figure all the terrible things were done to these January 6ers too. Boy, I tell you, this is just nuts. But we actually have a video saying what Biden actually thinks of this as well. Because back in 2020, Biden was asked in an interview with Jake Tapper what he thought of preemptive pardons when it was Trump that everybody was thinking might do it. And of course, Trump didn't do it, but give preemptive pardons to his family. So let's hear what Biden in his own words said about preemptive pardons. So that's, that would be KOL 14, Leon.
President Trump is reportedly considering a wave of preemptive pardons. Does this concern you? All these preemptive pardons?
Well, it concerns me in terms of what kind of precedent it sets and how the rest of the world looks at us as a nation of laws and justice. You're not going to see in our administration that kind of approach to pardons, nor are you going to see in our administration the approach to making policy by tweets. It's just going to be a totally different way in which we approach the justice system.
Totally different. He actually gave pardons to everybody, and Trump didn't. All his family members, just absolutely criminal, absolutely nuts. And to me, I think this is an absolute challenge to the constitutional integrity of our system. I mean, if you have a contract where, all men are supposed to be created equal and under the law, and here we have a system now that's being expanded by Biden, where essentially an administration now, a president, may tell people, hey, go commit a crime because guess what? I'll just pardon you for everything. You don't have to worry about it. This is literally what we're getting into at this point. A whole bunch of people were doing his bidding to go after Trump, and he just gave them all pardons. So, I mean, this is absolutely nuts to, the stuff. And to me, if this doesn't get either overturned by the Supreme Court, which may not have a leg to do it, but hopefully it'll get there and it'll get discussed, or if there is not a constitution amendment, to me, I think the country might be done, because if, as we go forward, you're going to get worse presidents than this guy. And if that's the new norm that Biden has set for us, where, literally he says, oh, do you do anything you want because I can write you a preemptive pardon that'll cover you for everything. We don't even have to disclose what the crimes are.
Exactly. The one thing that I'm hoping for, Jason, is that this thing is challenged, okay? Because just like you say, this thing sets such a dangerous precedent. To me, it's unbelievable that this could be happening in these United States of America. Because just like you say, a president now don't even have to disclose the crime. He could order the crime. He could order one of his aides to go do anything to any citizen. He don't even have to disclose that he ordered it. but he just have to issue a preemptive pardon. If down the road is ever discovered, well, too damn bad. You are pardoned. The hell with you. What happened to the rule of law? So I think what I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I only playing one on TV right now. I think that the Trump administration has to go ahead and prosecute one of these people who have who Biden have preemptively pardoned. They have to go ahead and prosecute them and let them assert that in court that they are pardoned, and then it could be challenged all the way to the Supreme Court. And I hope to God the Supreme Court will say preemptive pardons are not constitutional in this republic, because if it is, you're right, we are dead as a country. We really are. Because then the only thing that will be dependent upon is the goodwill of the President of the United States, who will be a man or woman and who will always try to protect themselves. This is horrible, beyond horrible.
Because I mean, this is the thing. If a president has to at least say what the crime is that he's pardoning somebody for, then at the very least, that president can get some blowback for what he's doing, right? I mean,
Yes.
if and the person too can at least be ostracized in life for whatever it is that they're getting a pardon for, and then there's at least transparency in that. And I'm not even saying that that's necessarily a good thing, because from a libertarian position, I'm not sure that pardons are such a great thing. But that said, if we are going to have it, it needs to be very finite and it needs to be transparent. And this idea of a completely untransparent immunity where the public doesn't even get to know what the person did,
Right.
that's crazy. That is absolutely nuts. And that's like really setting off a fuse to blow up our country. It's really
true. I agree totally. And I think even the wording of the pardon clause it makes it clear that this could not stand, to me at least. Like I said, I'm not a lawyer. I'm only playing one on TV here. It says the president could pardon for offenses against the United States. Okay, that suggests that there must be an offense. What we are seeing here in these pardons by Biden is that he just merely speculating that there might have been an offense. He's speculating about it. How does that become an offense against the United States? So I don't understand how this could be constitutional. I really don't. I cannot see that this could stand up to scrutiny. I just can't see it. But then I'm not a lawyer, so I hope it's challenged. I hope Kash Patel and Pam Bundy put together a good case. They'll have to find someone. They could probably use Hunter, who is already in the system, because Joe Biden pardoned him for the crimes that he already committed. Fine, it was sleazy, but he's within his authority to pardon him for those crimes. But it also said crimes that he may have committed. It also says that. So they could probably use Hunter and challenge these preemptive pardons. Or if they want to pick on Liz Cheney, which I wish they would, quite frankly, take Liz Cheney. There are a bunch of stuff that these J6 people did, including destroying evidence and hiding evidence. Liz Cheney also suborned perjury by a woman by the name of Cassidy Hutchinson. Okay, suborned perjury. So all kind of stuff are on the table for these people. So I think they have to go after it hard. Let Liz Cheney go in court and say she's pardoned, and then let's challenge it all the way to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. Can you imagine a world, going back to when Bush was in office and Cheney was the vice president, Dick Cheney, who is the father of Elizabeth Cheney, and the Democrats thought he was Dr. Evil of the time. They
Yes.
thought he was a supervillain practically. And I can't imagine a world where you would have told any Democrat back then that a Democrat president will be giving a preemptive pardon to the daughter of the person you think is Dr. Evil.
Yeah.
It really shows you what the Democrats have morphed into. I mean, it is
Of course.
a disturbing cult, to say the least.
Yes. Yes. No doubt.
deranged,
No doubt.
disturbed,
No doubt.
yes, authoritarian, it just crazy. Well, anyways, and speaking of crazy, let's get to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and this has to also do with the inauguration, but it has to do with some of the parties afterwards. And there was a speech where Elon Musk got to get up and say something, and it created a big stir, I guess. So, Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual here. It's a BBC story. So Elon kind of, a little awkwardly when he was, making gestures to the audience about, his heart going out to them, he gave a salute, essentially, it looks like. And so you can imagine what a Democrat would say to this. Obviously, they're always they've got their radar always at a high level for anything that relates to Nazis or anything else. And so obviously they saw Elon as a Nazi here, but let me first show the clip of Elon of what really happened there, so that you can see for yourself, and then we'll show you how it was portrayed in the fake news and just the bizarre take that AOC had. So, Leon, can you play KNP1?
There are elections that come and go. Some elections are, important. Some are not. But this one, this one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen. Thank you. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. It is thanks to you that the future of civilization is assured.
So clearly he was ecstatic. He wasn't saying anything about rounding up Jews or anything else. This was, just saying how happy and ecstatic he was about the results of the election.
Yes.
And now let's see how the mainstream media portrayed it. So, Leon, can you play KNP2 and the fake news?
Elon Musk setting off a firestorm one day after the world's richest man made a gesture during a post-inauguration rally. Musk, who made the gesture twice, is facing heavy criticism after many online compared his arm movement to a Nazi salute.
This is the United States of America. And I don't care what Elon Musk is doing behind a presidential seal. In this country, we hate Nazis. If you're cool and want to defend the Sig Heils and the Nazi salutes, all the whatever you want to do, that's on you. I'm on the opposite side of that. I'm not with the Nazis.
AOC wants them to know she's not with the Nazis. I don't think Elon is either.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But this is just horrible. Everybody is a Nazi. Everybody is a racist. Everybody, it doesn't matter. That's all they know how to do, this horrible cult. They just know how to name call people so that they can get their cult to just immediately turn on them and spew hatred. It's funny. These people are the ones who literally think that they should be policing speech for hate speech. They hate more than anybody. These people are a cult of hate.
This
awful.
This is the party of iOS. iOS, insanity on steroids. The man did the sign. He turned around, he did it again. And he said, my heart goes out to you. He was throwing his heart to the crowd, essentially, figuratively, of course. That's what he was doing. But yet, these fools like AOC and company, oh, Nazi, oh, Nazi. Yeah. I am on the other side of that. Nazi. That's all these damn people know.
Isn't it odd that these same people who tell you that you have to live by their reality and know their pronouns and everything else, now suddenly they're not going to take Elon's word for whatever it is that how he lives his life and how his gestures, what they mean to him. Suddenly they're going to tell Elon what they believe that is, and then they have to be part of their truth. That's crazy. I mean, take the man's word for it. He didn't literally say anything, do anything that's like a Nazi thing here. And but you want to see it that way, and you want to make everybody else live in your psychotic reality. This is just nuts. Terrible.
But this is all that they do, Jason. They want us to live in their insane reality. That's what they want us to do. Everything they do, from nearly every policy that they want to support, is always to get us to live in some insane reality. And good Lord, how long? I mean, if these people don't learn anything and learn it soon, I think they're done. They're done for a while at least, until they wake up to the reality of life of working people in America. Who could look at that? The man gave the sign to the crowd. He turned around, he did the same thing. And then when he turned back, he said, put his hand there again, my heart goes out to you. Does that tell you anything? Huh?
Yeah.
This is how insane these people are.
I mean, take the man's word for it. You want us to take your word for whatever gender you claim you are. You won't take his word.
Yeah, really. Yes.
It's just absolutely nuts. But yeah. Anyways, I thought it was an interesting look at Trump and seeing what might be to come. There's certainly some good things and some things that make us worry a little bit as sort of liberty-minded people that he might grow government a little here or there. But boy, I tell you though, it is better than the last guy. In case you need a reminder, let's show KOL 13, because this is the guy that they were trying to tell us was the best ever. And here you go.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
Weekend at Biden. We dodged a bullet in this election.
You know what is so insane about all this? Joe Scarborough used to be a halfway decent conservative. I mean, I knew about him for quite a while, and he was never hardcore conservative, but he was a decent one. And then this man got involved with that woman, Mika Brzezinski, or whatever the hell her name is, and all of a sudden the man have just lost all his. Well, I don't want to say the word what I think he have lost, but he have lost it really good. And now he's a raging left winger. I mean, where did this man go? Good Lord.
Yeah. Well, it does show you, I mean, how absolutely fake the media is. And I tell you, the one thing I think, I've said it to you many times, but I think the biggest thing Trump did for us by becoming president the first time was he put a spotlight on the fake news, the news media. That he made they became enemies, and they showed their true cards that they can't be objective. And that was the biggest gift that Trump gave to us, is seeing the jiggering behind the curtains of the news and how unobjective a lot of this stuff actually is, and the way that they completely shade everything. So so we have Trump to thank that for.
Yeah.
Thank for that.
I think the Godfellow analogy is a good one. Your favorite restaurant with a menu where you're gonna find many things that they don't like, but they're still your favorite restaurant, and they still will go back there.
Unfortunately, it's a government restaurant, so we're forced to take it all. So, yeah.
Yeah, but still, though.
But it's a better menu than the Biden restaurant. That's a horrifying menu. Turd sandwiches right and left. Different spices, same turds.
I still think the analogy holds, but you're right. It's a government restaurant in true.
Yeah. Well, I think that about wraps up the show for this time. So thanks so much for joining us. And until next time, think about what you could do in your community to try and expand liberty. Maybe there's some kind of activity or some way you could get people energized in your community to help move the ball for liberty, because as we've seen, they're definitely coming for your liberty, and we can't rely that Trump is the cure-all or the answer for all this stuff, even though we just dodged a bullet with Biden. I mean, there's still a ton of these wackos out there that are trying to take your liberty. So stay tuned and stay free until the next one.
Yes, indeed. Life liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.